All right, ready for Unit 4. We are starting with a concept called variables and starting a four-part lesson with an exploratory lesson. So in class, I'm going to be doing some hands-on stuff, but if you're just watching this and you missed class, I think you can get everything from this video. So the first thing to kind of warm up and start thinking about what variables are and what they do, you'll need to go to code.org to Bubble 2 for today's lesson and go through Bubbles 2, 3, and 4. These are some sample apps that are there to kind of show you what we can do with variables. What you're looking for while you're playing with these apps is what information is being stored, and maybe some decisions are being made based on that information. It's being collected and used somewhere else. So think about that. Go ahead, pause the video, and explore those apps, and then come back here. All right, so the first app, the Pet Rock app. This one is keeping tracks of clicks, and then it's using that to decide when the pet rock will evolve. The Poem app, that one is keeping track of a poem as you write it. And then the Thermostat app is keeping track of temperature and then using that to change the color of the text. So those are some examples of ways that we can use variables to keep track of information and then use it to make decisions inside of our apps. Like I said, in class, we're going to be doing hands-on activity using baggies and Post-its, but I'm going to show you all that on the screen, so I think that you'll be able to do it without having the physical manipulatives in place. And I think I'm going to relocate here. Oops, there we go. Okay, so talking about variables, these are ways that we can store pieces of information. And specifically, we store one piece of information inside a variable. The information we can store are called values, and we have two different types. We have numbers and we have strings. Numbers are obviously numbers, we know what they are, and we're going to use those on yellow Post-it notes just to kind of differentiate for a little while. Strings are anything that we put in quotes, and that means that whatever the value is, it doesn't change. We can't multiply it or add it or things like that. Exactly. So you can put a number inside of quotes and call it a string if you want it to always be 1, 2, 3. You don't want it to be used as a number. Operators are just a fancy name for plus, minus, multiply, divide. We can use operators to create an expression that evaluates two different values. So here we have our Post-it number 2, our Post-it number 3. We put an operator in between them, and now it's an expression. And if we wanted this to evaluate to a single value, it would be 5. The bottom, we have what would be 5 minus 1. That's so hard. It's 4. It's 4. So here are a few more examples of how we can use operators. We can use plus, minus, multiply, divide, just like we do numbers in math. And we would say 3 plus 4 evaluates to 7. And if we see this in code, we're going to evaluate it first, and we'll know that what we really need is the 7. We can also combine strings. You can see here at the bottom, 4 plus ever evaluates to forever. And obviously that the resulting value is going to be a string as well. But if you take a string like gr and add it to the number 8, it just puts the two together and the result is also a string. If one of them is a string, then the result is going to be a string. And all it does is it just puts them right up next to each other with no spaces. Over here to the right, we've got 4 plus 5 would evaluate to 9. 10 minus 9 evaluates to 1. Tree plus house evaluates to tree house. U plus R evaluates to your. 3 plus D evaluates to 3D. So the Post-it colors here just help you to remember which ones are strings and which ones are numbers. Now, our variables we represent with a plastic baggie as just a visual, because a baggie can contain something. And in this case, it contains a Post-it note with a value and it can contain one Post-it note at a time, one value ever. Uh, our our variable here called zip, we can call variables whatever we need to call them. Usually it's a little bit more descriptive than this, but it does have to start with a letter. There can't be any spaces in the name, and you don't use quotes. So we'll get more of that later. So it can contain a value that's a number or a value that's a string. And so here's what we do whenever we want to use an expression inside or a variable inside of our expression. Here we have an expression 3 plus zip. So zip is not a string in this case. It doesn't have quotes around it. That gives us a clue that it's a variable, which means there's a resulting baggie somewhere, and we need to know what is in that baggie. It's currently a 5, so we're going to replace zip with 5, and now we can evaluate our expression. 3 plus 5 evaluates to 8. Same down here, if we have an expression that says bop plus zip, there's no quotes in any of those, so we know that they're both variables. And we will go back and see what's in bop, what's in zip. And now we can add those two values together and get high five. Here's a couple more examples. Think about it for a second. So remember, whenever you see a variable in an expression, we just want to know what's in the baggie. What's the current value inside that variable? And then we can use it to combine two things. Now we're not going to use the Post-its for a little while. We're still going to highlight strings and numbers with their corresponding colors. So here is how we would write a variable, create a variable in code. We have the line number here to show you, and it always starts with 00. We are going to write the word var, stands for variable, and then the name of our variable, which in this case is POW. That's all we have to do to create a variable. Now there's this imaginary baggie over here with the word POW on it, and currently it has nothing inside of it, no values. Now here's how we would assign a value to our variable, to our baggie. We start out again, var POW. That's creating that baggie called POW. Next, we're going to assign it with a value of 3. We would say POW gets 3. This is called an assignment operator. Next line, the very next line says POW gets 5. Well, in code, that means we completely throw away the previous value and we give it a totally new value. Nobody cares what that old value was anymore, ever. But from here on out, it will be 5. So think through this one. I suggest pausing the video and thinking through this, and then I'm going to show you the result at the end and make sure that you understand what's going on. Okay, so in this one, we're creating a variable called pizza. Now there's an imaginary baggie over here called pizza. Pizza gets 3. We put 3 inside pizza. Creating another variable called tacos. Now we have a second imaginary baggie called tacos. Pizza gets yum. So going back to our first baggie, we're taking the 3, throwing it away, putting the word yum in there. And next line, tacos gets the best. So this is what your result should have been. Now, you can also assign a variable with an expression. So our first line here, we say var POW. We're creating that baggie called POW. There it is. Next line, POW gets 1 plus 2. So first we have to evaluate the expression to know that the answer is 3, and then we put 3 inside the baggie. Next line, POW gets 3 plus 4. We have to evaluate 3 plus 4, which is 7. We throw away the 3, put in the 7. So pause this one and run it in your mind, line by line. You can get out a piece of paper and draw your baggies if you want to, and I'll come back and give you the answers. All right, I'm not going to go through that one, but kind of the same process. If you didn't get it right, I would go back and go through it line by line again and just make sure you understand what's going on in every line. Now we're not going to highlight our strings and numbers anymore. We're just going to know that it's a string if it has double quotes around it. So we can assign a value with a variable. So we're going to start out line number 1, var kit. Now we have a variable called kit. Imaginary baggie over here, writing the word kit on it. Currently has no value. Now kit gets 1. So we're going to put 1 inside that baggie. Var boo. Now we have a second baggie called boo. Boo gets kit plus 1. So what's the value of kit? We need to know. Right now it's 1. So we bring that over, we add it to 1. So boo should be getting 2. Now kit gets 5. So we throw the 1 away. That was fun. And put 5 into kit. Does not affect anything that happened previously in the code. It only affects that line and beyond. So from now on, if we call kit inside an expression similar to this line, it will come in and see what's currently in kit, and it will get 5. Here's another one. I think that you should pause the video and run through this one and see if you get the same answer as me in the end. All right. Notice something new happening here on, starting in line 5, we have gr plus fuzz. So we're adding a string to a value inside of a variable. So whatever, I'm guessing it was 8 at the time. So you should have gotten great for the resulting value inside your clip variable. But then the next line, we have fuzz gets fuzz plus 1. That can be confusing. Remember to look at the expression, and you have to evaluate the expression. So don't look over here, look here. What is the current value of fuzz? I think it was 8 at the time, right? Plus 1, which evaluates to 9. So now you're replacing fuzz with 9 in that line. And then the next line, you're doing the same thing. You're saying it's currently 9, I'm adding 1. So now it's 10. Next line, it's currently 10, I'm adding 1. So the resulting value should be 11. Key takeaways. Mainly the important stuff here is to know that you can only ever have one value in a variable. One value is all that's going to fit in that baggie. Let's just think of it that way. When you create a variable, you create the baggie, and then you can change it. You can change the value that's inside that throughout the program. You can add it with other things. You can multiply it. You can do whatever you need to do with it. But first, you have to create it using var. Old values are deleted forever. So as soon as you assign a variable a new value, the old ones just go away. That's the important stuff there. So in some languages, the assignment operator is not written with an arrow. It's actually written with an equal sign. But this does not mean equals. It means we say gets. Fuzz gets fuzz plus 1. It's an assignment. We're saying whatever's over here on the equal sign is what we're giving the value to the variable fuzz. So it just means we're putting a value in the variable, and you'll get used to it. It'll be fine. Some vocab real quick. Expression is just your math problem. I think you got it all.